Hey guys, what's going on? Hope you're having an awesome day. But I want to talk a little bit about shed hunting tips today. You know, we're pushing into the end of February. A lot of guys are getting antsy. They want to just go out and pound their properties, try to find these deer antlers. But from what I can tell is there's not a ton of them that have dropped. I mean, I would be willing to bet that about 50 to 60% of those deer that we're looking for have dropped their antlers. This is one of those weird years here in the Midwest, Southwest Wisconsin in particular, where it's been a pretty mild winter. You know, I'm looking out the windows right now and we don't have any snow. You know, it's pushing that 40-degree mark today. It's a little bit breezy, but the woods is completely bare. These deer have not been stressed real hard. We don't have 12 to 16 inches of snow as you'd expect on a normal winter. We don't have those severe cold temperatures that you're expecting when we're talking about Wisconsin weather. So these deer are not being stressed. So that automatically is going to allow them to hold their antlers later. They're not strained with the hard, inclement weather, and their food sources aren't that scarce when you think about it. It was a bumper year for acorns. So I still can walk through the woods and find acorns that haven't been utilized or eaten up yet. So it was a prime year for forage within the woods. So these deer, when you're talking about what they're feeding on throughout those winter months, they're feeding on a lot of that browse, that native browse within their bedding areas. And then on top of that, if they're able to access those acorns on top of that, these deer are going to be in great shape come springtime. Now, when you implement a food plot program on top of that, that's exposed, now that doesn't have snow that they don't have to dig for, we're just making these circumstances even better. So we've got a mild winter, we've got plenty of forage within the woods, and now we've got good food plots and supplemental food on top of that. These deer are holding their antlers far later than on one of those nasty cold winters where there's not a lot of food, they're super yarded up, they're pounding these ag fields, scraping for everything they can get. Guys, what's going on? It's Gunnar. A lot of you have been reaching out saying you need more help. Well, I want to mention my habitat company, Hanson Habitat. If you want to take whitetails and wildlife to the next level on your own property, installing food plots, timber management, edge feathering, native habitat, fruit tree planting, whatever you need, bedding cover. I'm working with a team of the best land managers in the state of Wisconsin, and we'll travel, we'll do whatever you need to take your property to the next level. Shoot me a text message, 608-632-7233. We'll get you on the list. I'll help you with whatever you need. I got your back for life. Let's get back to the video. Now, I know a couple of weeks ago I stressed the point that you don't want to go in too early and try to find these sheds while these deer still haven't shedded out. Because all we're doing there is we're pushing these deer onto neighboring properties that we may not have access to. So this is a little bit of an updated version of that video with just general shed hunting tips. Now, when I'm shed hunting this time of the year, you know, it's still fairly early in the grand scheme of things. I'm focusing on food sources. Now, I'm gonna be combing this food source. Let's say this is beans right now. Beans are top priority for deer, far past corn. Beans, if I got a bean field versus a corn field, I'm taking beans all day. Beans hold their value far later than corn does. Corn's valuable for deer when there's no other food available, the conditions drastically change, and they're just looking for a quick energy hit when there's a lot of snow and it dumps off in temperature. So the time period that corn is valuable to deer is right on a cold front, right when you get a bunch of snow dumped on you. And that could be good timing when you're thinking about the hunting seasons, like maybe a late muzzleloader hunt. If you get a pile of snow dumped on, they're gonna be pounding corn. Or if you get a real snap and cold temperature, they're probably gonna be hitting corn at that time. But other than that, I'm gonna be wanting to focus on those bean fields. If I've got a good bean field here, I'm gonna be tearing that up. Or maybe some alfalfa that's staying green, like this winter. There hasn't been a lot of snowfall. It's been pretty mild temperatures. That alfalfa is even starting to green back up when we get up into those 50-degree days. So I'm focusing in on that and not so much the food sources they were hitting in December, because chances are that's not when these deer were shedding their antlers. We're looking at the food sources they were hitting in the last 2 weeks, if I'm being honest, and in the next 2 weeks. So let's focus on that. If you've got an exposed bean field right now that didn't get harvested because it didn't get tall enough on a drought year. If you're looking at something like that, or an alfalfa field that's got a little bit of height left, or wasn't cut right down to the soil, that's some stuff I'm gonna be taking a look at. That's some food sources that I'm gonna wanna hit. So that's where I'm gonna be at early season, during this early shed season. I'm gonna be pounding this food, I'm gonna be combing this, and at the same time, I'm not putting pressure on my bedding areas. So I'm not pushing these deer off my property. If you have a good depth of cover here, you have space for all deer, you're not gonna be pushing them off your property if you're just walking a food source. So it's a safe bet, and you can maybe pick up some of those earlier dropped sheds. Now, this is your edge habitat. Deer are gonna stage throughout here. This is what is called a staging area. Deer transition, they browse up through here, throughout this bedding area, and they stage right along, right behind this edge screening, these edges. So this edge can be switchgrass, native grass blend. It can be hard edge feathering like I've talked about, or this could be an orchard edge like I talked about planting. Orchard edges with apple trees, plum trees, pear trees, whatever you've got there. This is just edge habitat. It's a transition, and it's a lot more dense screen between your food source and the bedding areas, making these deer feel comfortable. Bringing and pulling these deer up right close to the food source right before dark, so they feel comfortable hitting this within daylight or getting near that at daylight. So I'm focusing on the food sources and then these edge habitat, this staging area. Because when you think about it, when deer first get up to move, when antlers begin to get jarred loose, when those testosterone levels drop, they're moving right here. This is where they're spending a majority of their time. You've got your bedding areas, and you've got their food sources and their staging areas, daytime browse areas. So this is what I'm focusing on early season. So I'm not pushing into these bedding areas and blowing these deer out so I can't find their sheds. Now when we get into March here and the cameras are telling me, you know, majority of these deer have dropped, or I'm going out and I'm seeing deer in fields and I don't see any bucks still holding, that's when I'm gonna go in and I'm gonna hit these buck bedding areas. That's my last priority. Because if I've got a buck bedding area on my property that I know bucks are using throughout the year, why do I have to go in and find them right away? You know, they're still gonna be there when I get to them 2 weeks later. You know, let's focus on the food sources first so we don't push these deer off. Let's make sure majority of them are dropped, and then we can go in and push into these areas where we might find a specific set of horns that we're looking for. Maybe we know a buck's bedding in a specific spot pretty consistently. Then we can go in and look for those horns. Your shed hunting tips, focus on the food early. You know, I like to consider myself a fairly good shed hunter. This was a shed found right on food in an alfalfa field. This was last year. Good 4-year-old last year. Call this buck the perfect 10. This was another one found in a switchgrass field like I'm talking about here, one of these edges, right, in a staging area prior to Big Ag. It was a cut bean field, switchgrass, about half-acre patch right there. He was coming up out of bedding in the valley, coming up here, orchard edges run like so, switchgrass patch like so, coming up out of here, shed his horn right there, just like that. So follow this description that I'm using. Find these sheds. It's pretty simple. It's pretty straightforward. If you have a good line of movement throughout your property, you have quality habitat, native habitat that are holding these deer through the winter because you have food value as well as cover value, you're gonna have a lot better chance finding these sheds if you focus on food sources first, early, transition into your edge habitat, your staging areas, then push into your bedding late when you know that majority of these deer have dropped. So I hope this helps you guys. This is how I found majority of my sheds throughout the years. I've got a pretty good pile of them here. You know, these are just a few of them that I had laying around, but I guarantee you if you stick to this, it's kind of a goofy year. I wouldn't bank on a lot of this being repeated year over year because this is a rare winter. But at the same time, there's cues that we can lock in on so we can be successful shed hunting this year and on these weird years that maybe we don't have a lot of experience with. Guys, it's Gunnar. Look, a lot of you guys have been talking to me, telling me how you need help. Well, I want to talk to you today about Whitetail coaching. One-on-one virtual coaching with me We'll go in depth on whatever problems, whatever help you need. We'll find the solution you're looking for. Shoot me a text, 608-632-7233. 608-632-7233. I got your back for life.